And she looked at me in my eyes and she was like, Emily, please, can you just eat it? That was literally like the breaking point. I remember like curling into a ball on my kitchen floor, like sobbing into my hands, being like, I don't know why, but I can't eat it. And then I was like, do you know what? It's time to go and to university. And do you know what I want to study? I want to study nutrition. I want to understand this whole culture around what we should and shouldn't be eating.
You are probably the most famous nutritionist I know in this country right now. I'm going to say it, even if you don't believe it. I'm going to say it. You're a registered nutritionist, you're a content creator, and I've seen your journey on socials over the last few years, because I think when I first started following you, you had like 30,000 followers, or something like that, and now you've jumped up to into like 260 nearly.
I wish that one person's opinion didn't hurt in a way that just like nullified all of the good stuff.
I'm the same. I literally go looking for the bad comment.
Failure is not negative. We need failure to grow and to learn. I've learnt the biggest lessons in my life from the things that have gone wrong or haven't happened to me. I would not be the person that I am today if I wasn't brave enough to leave everything that I thought I wanted behind.
Welcome back to a brand new episode of Learning As I Go, and you are in for a treat today because I'm in a really good mood, and that means I'm going to get the juice. But before I do, I just want to say a massive thank you, because so many of you have been tagging me on Instagram saying that you have taken on the British Triathlon race with me in Sunderland on the 29th of July. So this is going to be special. I'll talk about this later on in the podcast. But today I'm joined in the studio by Emily English. You might recognize her as Emily the Nutritionist on Instagram, and she has blown up. Everybody's talking about her. Her foodie content is just on a whole new level, and she just makes food look sexy. But there's so many layers to this girl, and she really opens up on this podcast. So please get ready to learn another life lesson with Learning As I Go. This is your little spot here. Welcome. Loving the vibe today. Oh wow. Group 2, clap in. Woo! We've done it again. We've got another big name in the building, Miss Emily English, who I cannot believe when you just walked through the door then. I was like, we haven't actually even met till today, which is weird, because obviously we spoke a lot on socials, we even did a live together, but we finally made it happen. We've got you in the studio, so thank you for being here.
You're so welcome. I feel like I know you already though.
Yeah, it is weird. It is weird, because we've been speaking for a long time. Back and forth, and obviously now you've blown up on socials, right? You are probably the most famous nutritionist I know in this country right now. I'm going to say it, even if you don't believe it. I'm going to say it. You're a registered nutritionist, you're a content creator, and I've seen your journey on socials over the last few years, because I think when I first started following you, you had like 30,000 followers, or something like that, and now you've jumped up to into like 260 nearly, and you're growing really quickly, and everybody's talking about you. Like in my office, the social PR girls, oh, I love Emily, I love her content, I love what she's doing, I love what she talks about. So talk to me about, how did it all start? How did you even get into nutrition?
So I've had quite a funny journey with food. Like I come from a family who all are obsessed with food. Like every single Sunday roast without fail, would all sit around the dinner table, and we had this like giant dinner table that sat all 7 of us as well. So I'm one of 5, a lot.
5? You got 5 siblings?
5 siblings.
Wow.
So big crew. And at the time, I remember as a kid, like I actually really didn't like food. I was really fussy. I didn't really care about it. My mum always used to be into feeding us well and making sure we ate well, and I took a lot of the cooking responsibilities over from my mum, because my brothers and sisters were all under the age of 3 when I was 8 years old.
Wow.
So then I had one older brother as well. Okay. So 3 under the age of 3. My mum was pretty preoccupied with them, so I had to kind of
step up,
do the cooking. Then it wasn't until I got a job at ASOS, and I was walking around at a festival, V Festival, when I was, how old was I? I was probably like 16 years old, and a casting agent came up to me and was like, hey, we're scouting for ASOS in-house, would you come for a test shoot in London? I said,
that's pretty cool.
It was really cool. I remember at the time, like it being like the most iconic thing ever. So I went, I did this test shoot. I'd just come back from holiday as well, so I was super tanned, like feeling myself, and it went really well, and they were like, yeah, we want to book you. And I had this relationship with ASOS that was amazing. They made me feel so safe, so at home. They were like my family. I had the best 2 years there, and It was an amazing opportunity, both financially, but
Sorry, can I just say something on that though? Because I remember, obviously, back in the day, I tried to do a bit of modelling. I didn't do very well. But obviously, ASOS was the dream job. Like, they paid the best. That was the go-to job. So the fact that you got that is a credit to you. And I'm not really surprised, by the way, because you've walked in today looking $1 million in your little friend. Is it French shoes you've got on?
They are open back loafers and Massimo Dutti.
Yeah, so obviously, to get scouted like that at such a young age, that must have been incredible.
I was buzzed because I remember just before then as well. Like, so I worked at Hollister at the time as well. So I was ticking off all of
that's
the
like a dream job as well.
Dream jobs. But what ended up happening is like I was the girl who would sit in the sixth form common room with my McDonald's sweet chili chicken wrap, my fries for lunch because I could like literally afford to go now. Then I was exposed to this whole host of kind of toxic diet culture and fad diets, and suddenly I became very self-aware of what I was eating and what I looked like. And I've always been really lucky, like I've always been super petite, haven't really had to worry too much about strict dieting. Like my mum never dieted, so I wasn't around that in my family. And then ASOS turned around to me and were like, look, you're doing so well, I think we're going to put you forward to getting like a proper agency because we can really see you having a career in this industry. And at the time I was like, oh yeah, like that sounds absolutely amazing. And I remember having the best summer of my life. I took my mum to Chicago, I went to Mykonos, and this is just all off my own back. And I wasn't even 18 years old yet, and I was doing all of these things. And I came back and had this chat with this agency, and they kind of looked at me and they were just like, well, we can tell that you've had a lot of fun this summer.
Wow.
And they're like, and they literally took the pictures out, and they're like, so what we need to do is like, if you see how your thighs are photographing, like they're looking a little bit too big, and I just don't think you're going to book the job. So we're going to recommend you to kind of do like an hour of running day and to try and slim down. They were like, and then they gave me like a diet advice, and it was the first piece of restrictive diet advice that I'd ever been given.
And they actually scrutinised you, like down to the fact of going through your pictures.
It was like an assessment.
Oh wow! I was going to say, it reminded me then like they were talking about some kind of lab rat.
Yeah, literally. Like I was a product, and they didn't take into account my feelings. And a lot of people would have just had that situation, been like, oh, whatever, like, I don't care, like I'm doing good, I'm living my life. But I took it so to heart. And one of my biggest personality traits is that I'm a bit of a people pleaser and a bit of a perfectionist. So they told me this, and I was like, I'm going to do the best job at this. Okay, cool, game on. And I became obsessed with every single calorie, with every single gram, with every single weight, with every single step and mile. And my body literally became this maths equation. Every single day it was maths. I remember walking home back from the agency, walking in my front door, and my mum putting down a plate of food in front of me. And I think she'd made like a homemade chicken pie with peas and greens, and it was gorgeous.
Sounds
and it was
beautiful.
it was so good. And I shouted at her and was like, why are you feeding me this? Like, I can't eat this. And I remember refusing to eat it and going to the kitchen, and I can't actually remember what I ate, but that was the kind of the start of where it all fell apart, really, for me.
So how low did it get for you then? Obviously you went for this kind of period of life where you treat your body like a maths equation, and it sounds like you survived that period for a while, but when did it get to the point when you went, you know what, I can't actually live this kind of life? Was there a low point for you?
So my weight dropped, and it started to take away so much of my life and my joy, because I actually really loved food at that time as well. Like, I wanted to try all the new restaurants. I wanted to go to that cool coffee shop and try that pastry, but suddenly I couldn't anymore. And I remember this defining moment where it was like a hot summer's day, and I was with my boyfriend at the time, my mum and my family, and she'd made us all cheese rolls, like a brown cheese roll with fresh tomatoes, lettuce, and she put it down in front of me. And she looked at me in my eyes and she was like, Emily, please, can you just eat it? And that was literally like the breaking point. I remember like curling into a ball on my kitchen floor, like sobbing into my hands, being like, I don't know why, but I can't eat it. And I know that there's something wrong with this. And that was that defining moment. And I literally remember it like it was crystal clear, literally like it happened yesterday. And I reached out to a therapist who specialised in CBT and eating disorders, and her name was Jane, and she was the most wonderful person that ever happened to me. And I left the modelling agency. I decided from that point that I just needed to take a break, and I stepped back and I worked on myself, and I worked on my relationship with food. And at the time, all my friends had gone to university probably 2 years prior, so I'd been working. And then I was like, do you know what? It's time to go to university. And do you know what I want to study? I want to study nutrition.
No way.
Because I want to understand this whole culture around what we should and shouldn't be eating, and understand why it's important for me to nourish and fuel my body. Because I loved science. I was going to go to university to study human physiology. But it was that shift. It was that defining moment in my life that actually has led me to where I belong, because I've never felt so much like I'm following my purpose more than I am now, which is beautiful.
Yeah, it sounds like the defining moment for you is that awareness piece, because it sounds like other people around you would have noticed your sort of self-sabotage behaviour towards food.
Yeah.
But the moment when you actually stopped and realised, I think that's the biggest thing for anyone potentially listening to this, having that awareness. It's like same with me. It's like people used to say to me all the time, especially with alcohol and drinking, like, you're a bit of a dick, Scott. Like, do you know what I mean? And it's like, I kind of knew I was, but I didn't really want to take responsibility for it. And I think once you do have that awareness, and then realise that only you can get yourself out of it, that's when you start taking action towards sorting it out. Does that make sense?
100%. And I knew it was up to me, and I knew that I held all of the cards in my hand, and I just needed to create that space and awareness of the situation. And I still use the tools now that Jane taught me when I get stressed or anxious or a little bit obsessive over things, where I take like a bird's eye view on a situation, where I'll almost imagine leaving my body, flying above everything, and just like I'm watching it as if I was watching a TV show or a movie.
Wow.
And it's really, really powerful, because it's such an amazing tool of reflection. And I think what happened in that cheese roll moment was I became really self-aware of what I was doing. And I knew that I couldn't justify those behaviors anymore, because I knew deep down it wasn't who I was, and I didn't want that for myself.
And it sounds like you basically channeled that kind of pain that you were going through and that struggle that you were going through. You wanted to get the answers, which you now in turn are using to help other people. And is that why you call it your purpose?
Yeah, 100%.
But the size of the problem is huge, isn't it? Because you talk about you having an eating disorder, and I know there's different extremes to it. But do you feel like everybody has a little level of a disorder around food? Because like I said before, even before you came in, I went, the fact that I see you eating bread all the time just makes me so happy, because I used to think that I couldn't eat bread. And even now I know that you can. And I wouldn't say I had an eating disorder.
Yeah.
There's so much misinformation around food. The size of the problem is huge, and it comes on different levels. Would you agree?
100%. And so there are a large percentage of people who have an eating disorder, and there are a larger number of people who have disordered eating. So I think they're two very different things. A lot of us can use food as a source of comfort in a way of control, so either restriction, or comfort in a way of binging and overeating. But I also think a lot of us have our own unique quirks and behaviours around food. And just because I do something and you don't do what I do doesn't mean what you're doing is wrong. And one thing that I'm always really careful to do is if someone likes to macro count, calorie count, weigh their food, and they don't find it a negative space, I'm not going to tell that person that what they're doing is wrong, because that's just how they like to manage their food, manage their fitness, and that makes them happy. And we have to be more flexible when it comes to nutrition and our food, because we all have our own identity in it. We don't all eat the same, we don't all dress the same, we don't all feel the same, we don't all move the same. So our nutrition doesn't need to be the same as well. And I think sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves to find the perfect diet, the perfect routine, the perfect structure, but really that is just what makes you feel good. And it's what's best for you, and it's what's sustainable.
Yeah, because if you're in a room with about 10 PTs, they all have different ways of working and different ideologies.
Yeah.
And it's stressful, but at the end of the day, they're all kind of getting the same result. That's what they want to achieve. But it's so frustrating sometimes when you sit in a room full of PTs, because there isn't just one size that fits all. There is literally so many different ways to achieve a goal. But what did you learn through the process of studying nutrition? How did your mindset around food begin to change? What would you say was the biggest learning?
So the biggest thing that I realised that was missing from the nutrition industry was there is a detachment between what we know we need to eat for nutrition purposes, so vitamins, minerals, macros, versus food that's on our plate, which gave rise to this whole chicken, broccoli and rice era, where if I said to someone, our meal plan, healthy meal plan, you think individual itemized bits on a plate that ticks a checklist for, okay, I know I need this. I loved food and I loved cooking and I loved sitting down to a plate of something that made me feel amazing, but also was giving me everything that I knew I needed. So it's that kind of hybrid between the food that I want to eat because I know it's good for me, but then also the food that I want to eat because it's delicious. And that's where I started doing my recipe creation, because I thought, do you know what? I can hybrid everything that I know from a scientific point of view, from a nutritionist point of view, with a chefy point of view.
Yeah, make it tasty.
Make it tasty. And I brought it together and I found this space with my social media, which I think resonates with so many people, because that's why my strapline is the food you want to eat, designed by a nutritionist.
Ooh, I like it.
Because that is just everything that I encompass.
Because when you think of a nutritionist, typically you think, like you said, brown rice, broccoli and chicken. And it kind of, it puts a barrier up. You don't really want to approach a nutritionist for that reason. Whereas you make it sexy.
Yeah.
If that's the right word.
No, it is. I do sexy food. I want food to be sexy. Like all my food shots are like pulling apart, creamy, cheesy, like all just like the bits that look good. But it's like the way that I do it, it's like packed full of antioxidants and fiber and skin loving nutrition, and it's feeding your gut, and it's going to make you feel energized but lighter and brighter without you even thinking, oh, I'm on a diet.
Yeah, you use all these words, these emotive words, don't you, to try and glamorize food, because in this country especially, a lot of us demonize food and certain foods, when in actual fact we should love food. Food is the fuel for life, and it's the key for everything. Even like in this country, we know the well-known saying, 80% diet, 20% exercise when you're trying to achieve a goal. But literally, again, in January, what's the first thing everybody does? Goes and signs up to a gym. And for me, the biggest priority, if you do want to achieve a goal, obviously exercise is really important, is get your food right first, because once you're fueling yourself in the right way, you become more productive, you sleep better, you're happier.
100%.
And then everything else kind of flows from that. Where I feel like there is this culture of just restriction around life, and you can't go to this place, you can't enjoy your life. If you're on a diet, you can't do this. When in actual fact, food should be enjoyed and loved. And I think that's what you're a massive advocate of. 100%.
Like that's what I challenge. And that's why I probably get 5 lovely messages a day from people who are specifically saying, I used to have really disordered eating. I used to feel like I couldn't do this. Thank you so much for shedding such an amazing kind of insight, and also permission to just have freedom in your food. And I think so much of the kind of diet culture and nutritionists out there, they make people feel guilty for having something as simple as a slice of white bread. And it's everything in context, it's everything in moderation. Like nothing is black and white, bad or good. As long as you're having a balance of everything, then you can pretty much kind of navigate and adapt and mold that to suit you in whatever way that you want.
Yeah, because even when I see you with a nice glass of red wine sometimes, you might have thought that, I don't know, a registered nutritionist wouldn't touch alcohol or anything else. And I admire the fact that you do, because like you said, it's all about balance and moderation. Obviously, I really struggled with moderating alcohol. I couldn't do it. Well, I could do it, but I got nothing out of it. Yeah. Like if I had 2 glasses of wine, I'd wake up the next day and go, why did I bother? I just wanted to get pissed. Basically, that's my attitude towards alcohol. But balance, I think, is the key to everything. Is there any times when you don't have balance with your food? Like in terms of, do you go on binges or?
See, I'm lucky that I have quite, like I am because I'm a perfectionist and I am very self-aware, I'm able to allow myself all the things I actually deep down, like inside, want to do, all the things I want to eat, all the restaurants that I want to go to, and it's like, oh, I can't wait to try that cocktail. And if I get home and sometimes they're like, oh, I've got a real appetite for a gin and tonic, and I'll have one, but I'll be able to have one. And I'm also good with balance. So this is what I always try and educate my audience with as well. It's not about, oh, I went out to that restaurant, so I can't have breakfast and I need to starve myself. It's just thinking about how you're treating your body. So if I wake up the next day and I feel a little bit sluggish because I had a bottle of wine, a gorgeous bowl of pasta, went to a great Italian restaurant, smashed tiramisu, loved it, stunning. Wake up the next day thinking, I'm so energized now that I'm going to go for a nice, bright, early morning walk, and I'm going to choose to nourish myself with a bit more kind of informed choices today. And immediately that mindset means that I don't feel like I'm punishing myself. I don't feel like I'm depriving myself. I'm just giving my body the self-love that it needs to feel its best. Because the night before, I was giving my mind what it needs to feel its best. If I did that every single day, by the end of the week, I'm going to feel tired, sluggish, lethargic. But that's what I talk about, like the art of balance. It's not binge restrict. It's freedom to enjoy, but then also respect for yourself to give your body what it needs.
I think that's really interesting because I've done that before when I've gone out the night before. I went to Peach Street Kitchen not long ago, and I overindulged. I say overindulged, but I ate a lot of good food. And the next day, I think I took it from the live that we did. I just treated it as fuel for my gym session, and actually sometimes lift heavier weights and I have more of a productive gym session because I've got that fuel within me.
You feel it, don't you? Like if you have a big meal and you fuel up and you'll go into that gym session or you'll do that run, you're like, I'm on top of the world.
Yeah, you have a better session, and sometimes you even look better because you're more like filled out
You're
and
pumped,
everything else. Yeah, you're pumped up. But then I think there's also this thing in this country as well where we're kind of conditioned and programmed to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, regardless if we're even hungry. So if I actually took a step back and go, do you know what? After that big meal last night, I'm actually hungry today in the morning. Where sometimes you're conditioned to go, oh, it's 9 o'clock now, I should be eating some breakfast. When in actual fact, you just listen to your body and you can kind of regulate yourself in a healthy way rather than literally just being programmed and conditioned to eat at certain times. So like you said before, it's about what works for you. I've got some friends who don't eat till lunchtime and that works for them. So would you say that it's about being more in tune to your body?
100%. And I think there's a difficulty with intuitive eating when people feel so lost in the world of what to eat and nutrition. So I have a lot of people who will message me saying, oh, do you know, I'm actually really struggling with this whole intuitive eating thing. So I say, okay, start back and do the basics again. Maybe try to have 3 meals a day if you're someone who's suffering from disordered eating and you don't really understand your hunger signals properly. But if you are someone who is asking yourself, should I eat breakfast because I'm not hungry? Listen to your body in that sense. So you don't have to have exactly the same pattern of eating as your best friend or your mate. It's not something that has to be exactly the same between every single person. Like you can just feel free to explore what works for you.
And I bet you kind of learned a lot about that, being one of 5 siblings. Talk to me about being one of 5 siblings. What was that like growing up? Were you the second oldest?
I was the second oldest, yeah. And I mean, so I started therapy again recently, and it's been something that I've explored a little bit about my relationship with my family and how I grew up. And I was always the child who was good, but never quite good enough. I wasn't the first. My older brother was the first to get into the good school, the first to start competing in cross country and winning championships, the first to get all of his A stars and all of his exams. And I was that 1 year behind where it's like, okay, it's already been done. Good job, Emily. Not quite as good as your brother. And then my younger siblings took all of the time and attention. So when it actually came to physical and emotional time that I spent with my mum and dad when I was younger, I didn't get that. And I think one of the reasons why I so often need and search for other people's approval is because I never quite felt like I was good enough, and I always had something to prove. And I think I've become really aware of how that's impacting my relationship with my work and myself. And it's something that I'm really enjoying working on these last few months, because I think having that level of awareness of who you are and why you are the way you are really helps you with just emotional growth, because we're not all the same person throughout our life. We grow, we adapt, we evolve, and we change. But 3 months ago, when I first sat down with my therapist, she said, well, who do you feel like you are? And I couldn't answer her. I didn't know who I was. I felt so lost in all of the growth, all of the success, the constant pressure of wanting to maintain my performance, maintain that growth, make sure that I'm giving everyone content that's valuable. And I ended up putting myself in such a mental hole. And I think it's so important that we have to sometimes just be brave enough to look inside us, really understand who we are in order to become the person that we want to be. And
that's just got me a little bit emotional. You know why? Because I've been going through the same conversation with my therapist, in terms of he's always asking me to spend time thinking about who is Scott outside of social media. Because obviously Scott on social media, Scott who hosts a podcast, Scott the businessman. But I really struggle to separate who I am from the personal brand of Scott sometimes. And someone said to me the other day, Scott, what do you do for fun? What do you do for hobbies? And everything I do in my life is a means to an end. Whether I go to the gym, I go to the gym because obviously I want to feel good, but I want to look good. It's part of my brand. I listen to a podcast. It's got to be a productive podcast. I don't listen to funny ones. I need to get as much value out of it. I watch TV. I watch documentaries. It's everything towards becoming a high achiever, and it's always chasing goals. And it's difficult not to get wrapped up in that. And even like today, like my mood is so much better because I put a podcast trailer out for today's podcast, and it's gone really well. It's blowing up, and it affects my mood, and I'm so much happier. Whereas sometimes I'll put a piece of content out and it won't do as well, and that will actually impact my mood. And I'm like, Scott, have some awareness. This is not define your value as a person. So just chill out and have some awareness. But it's so difficult not to get wrapped up in that. And I think obviously if there's people like ourselves who are content creators, who are influencers in our own right, and it's a career that we're really passionate about, it's hard to separate those things. Would you say that yourself, like sometimes?
You literally spoke my mind. Like that's exactly how I feel with all of this. And it's hard because I'm doing something that feels so innate and something that I love to do so much. But I can't let my value on my social media determine how I value myself. And I think it's a really tricky situation that any content creator will go through exactly the same emotions as we do. And it's hard because so much of who we are is ingrained in what we put out there anyway. Like I don't feel like, I think we're both authentic like channels who I make food that I eat and I'm constantly thinking about. But if something flops, I need to not take it as a personal failure. And I think that's the area that's so hard to navigate with as we grow at the moment.
But you know what? I don't think it's just like influencers or content creators, because even in my office with the social PR girls, they all, for example, have social media and they post pictures. And I think even your everyday person, if they put something out on social media and it doesn't get received well, and we are so reliant on validation from other people. I'm the same because I've worked in PR, and to work in PR, everyone has to love you, because if you don't love you, they don't want to work with you. And same with when I used to host nightclub events. I literally needed every single person in Manchester to love me so they would come to my night. And even if I didn't like them, they didn't like me, I'd still pretend that I liked them so they would come to the night, because I'd much rather take their money to come into the club than, do you know what I mean? It's all about people pleasing all the time. And sometimes it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And even like, there's days when I feel flat, and don't get me wrong, I love what I do. I do love what I do, but I put so much pressure on it. But there's some days when I feel flat and I feel like I've got to be Scottish Special, high energy all the time. And I reckon with you, there must be an expectation everywhere you go to talk about food. Like, literally.
Sometimes I think, like, I'll meet someone for the first time, or I'll be at, like, an event, and I feel like I'm on autopilot at the moment. I literally feel like I say the same 5-minute speech about who I am, what I do.
I was thinking it just then when we did the podcast. I thought, do you know what? We need to talk about this to put it into context. Yeah. But I felt your pain in terms of it's the narrative that it's true and it's real, but it's not just you, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think when we think about our own identity and we think about our personal identity, so much of my identity actually is my job and my career and my business. And I think...
Sorry, I'm just seeing Emily the nutritionist.
Yeah.
Literally, in a tagline.
Yeah, literally. It's like always... It's always that. And I don't mind that, but I think what I'm becoming a little bit more aware of is its impact in the relationships with the people closest to me. And I think that's quite a hard... Like, my love, and one of my biggest loves in my life is my job. And I find it really hard actually to separate that love and identity and that priority when I have downtime. So I think what's happening now and what I'm finding now is people are saying, hello, Emily, like, where have you gone? We need you. Like, I need you. And I don't have a lot of that to give.
Oh my God, I'm literally going through the same thing where I give so much to my followers. I reply to DMs like all day long to random strangers. But if I'm in a room sometimes with my brothers or my family, they say I'm just not there.
Yeah.
And listen, I do love my job. Oh, do I love my job? I love success. I want to be successful. And don't get me wrong, I'm good at what I do, so I feel like I'm a little bit different to you in terms of, well, I don't know actually. I want to do everything I do from a place of passion. Yeah. It sounds like you're doing what you do from a place of passion. Sometimes I do what I do from a place of I need to prove myself.
Yeah. I resonate with that though.
Does that make sense? It's like I'm trying to, who am I proving myself to? Do you know what I mean? I think over the years, because I was a party boy and then I was a reality star, to then be positioning myself as a businessman, which I think I've finally managed to do. And even sometimes when I speak to brands, I go, I didn't even know you did Love Island. Like, that's a big thing for me to get away from that. But there has been an element of always trying to prove myself. Who do you feel like you're proving yourself to? Your family?
Yeah. So it would be because I never felt like I was good enough. I had this drive that was like, no, like I will get well done, and you've done a great job, and like my family are amazing, like, and they love me unconditionally. They really do not care what I'm doing. It's my own personal voice and personal narrative that makes me so competitive against myself. I'm not a jealous person. I don't really look outwards and compare myself to other people, but the person that I'm in a race with is me. I have this constant battle with myself and it's one thing that I'm really trying to work on. I think we all have that inner bully. So we all have that voice inside us that is our own, that sometimes when we look in the mirror or we submit something or we do something will fill us with doubt and vulnerability and insecurity. And what I'm really trying to do at the moment is identify that voice and understand that it's not my own. And that natural level of competitiveness and wanting to be better, sometimes I miss out on enjoying the moment because I'm doing all of these amazing things. I'm literally living my dream right now. And I'm missing out on every single mini win and mini celebration and all those small joys that I should fill my day with, okay, how can you be more efficient at this? What's next? What brand deal can you do here? And it's this constant chasing which leaves life behind, and that's something I'm petrified of now. Like, I don't want to get to 40 years old and look back and be like, so, like, what did I actually do to enjoy all of that? Because I'm not doing this to, like, as a means to an end. I'm actually doing something that fills my heart and my soul. Like, I love what I do. I love my audience. I love the community that I have. Like, it gives me so much purpose. And the biggest thing that I've started to say recently and is making a really big difference is that I can actually turn around to myself and say, I'm really proud of myself. I'm really proud of myself. Not from, well, okay, you need to do better, you're not good enough. I can now actually look at something and be like, oh, that recipe, absolutely banging. I'm so proud of that.
Yeah, and do you know what? I just asked my previous guest, who's won the Premier League, won so many different trophies, and I said to him, "Are you proud of yourself?" And he said no. And I know that's because he's on a personal journey now where he needs to fall in love with himself again. And I'll be honest, I think if I take a step back and ask myself now, am I proud of myself? I would say I am.
Yeah.
Because of what I've overcome over the last few years. Am I where I want to be? Not necessarily. But I feel like if we do start to just love ourselves, be proud of ourselves, and do things in the present and be more passionate, that's when the success follows. Whereas sometimes if you're literally constantly reaching for the next goal, and it's so easy to say this because I'm exactly the same. I'll talk about, I did a whale watching trip, which I went to last year. And it was like on my bucket list, it's on my vision board. And I went and did it, but I knew it'd be great content as well. And I knew that I wanted to share this with my followers and everything else. So I was on this whale watching trip, but I was also on social media. I was also running another story. It's like almost two lives are always running with me. Does that make sense? And there was times when I was watching the whales through my phone, and I was like, but then I had to check myself, and I'm aware of it. But because in this world that we live in, and I spoke to Anastasia Kingsnorth, a massive YouTuber, and I said to her, how do you have the boundaries between being, because your career is basically being on social media, how do you have the boundaries between Anastasia personally and Anastasia online? So I don't, to compete in this world, in the YouTubing world and everything else, that's a sacrifice you have to
Your life has to become everyone
immersed,
else.
Yeah. Whereas I feel like me and you are in slightly different situations where we don't have to document every moment of our days. No. But how do you get that? It sounds like you're struggling with it.
Yeah.
How do you, because I'm the same. I went out for a meal recently with a friend, and I said, I promised I wouldn't go on my phone. And I was on my phone in the space of, like, I think it was the night before podcast went live, so I'm blaming these guys in there because we were signing something off. And I hate myself, the fact that she mentioned it, but I couldn't help it. But I was like, but I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission to get to where I need to be, and I need you to be on board with that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you think that you can get obsessed with this idea of success, but what actually is success to you? When do you think that you'll be able to turn around and say, I'm successful now?
Do you know what? It's funny because I've always thought I need to chase the big millions in the bank and everything else. And I'm actually thinking, my life right now, I'm actually pretty content. I live quite a simple life. Don't get me wrong, I do have nice things. I'm very lucky that I get to go to nice places, stuff like that. But most of my time at the weekend, literally, I'll spend my weekend on my own with my dog, exercising, eating good food, and just chilling. Like nothing really that lavish. So why do I need to go and chase all these big things? Because if I really wanted to go and do some nice things now, I could do. But I'm actually quite humble in where I like to spend my time.
Yeah.
So that's another question my therapist asks me all the time. What does success mean to you?
Yeah.
And I think security for me. I want to be secure.
100%.
Like financially secure. And I just want to be content day to day. And I should be, because I have a great life.
Yeah.
But I do put so much pressure on myself that I wake up most days overwhelmed. Like even coming in today, I went, Scott, don't think about anything else but your podcast. You love doing this. Like put all your other businesses to one side for a minute. And I think it's about being clear about your boundaries, about who you are and where you want to operate. So, for example, in business, I don't want to be all across all my businesses all the time. It doesn't make me happy. I love doing this. I want to be the driving force for my business. So, but I give too much sometimes. I say it's my business is doing it to me. It's actually me because I'm too accessible. So it's about being really clear around your own boundaries and then making sure the world understands them, and then they will respect them over time.
100%. I totally agree. It's just the biggest thing, I think, when you do feel like you have an end goal or an aim. I just never want anyone to miss out on the journey, because I actually feel like I have missed so much of the last 6 months of my life being anxious, overthinking, worrying about every single possibility that could go wrong.
I'm the same. I literally go looking for the bad comment. And And it's so funny. I actually looked on the YouTube, the girls will laugh. I looked on the YouTube and someone actually said, the way that Scott's so complimentary of someone on his podcast shows that he's got a weakness in his role. And I took a step back and went, you're actually saying that I'm being too nice and turning it into a criticism. But at the same time I had to laugh about it because it was hilarious. But there is that kind of self-sabotage part of me where I think human beings, we do that as well. It's like, I've been reading a book recently that human beings will literally stop and watch sort of catastrophic content over puppies.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's part of how we're wired, and maybe it's that kind of, I don't know, primal instinct of survival mode. But I do fully relate to that. It's so interesting that we are quite similar in that sense, which I didn't think you would be. And this is what I'm saying, like the fact that you're struggling with this.
People message me being like, oh, I would never think that someone like you would have anxiety. Everyone thinks when they look at a page or they look at a person, they're like, that person has their life put together, like they have no worries, everything's good for them. But the reality is, behind closed doors, like I'm having nervous breakdowns, I'm having anxiety attacks, like my insomnia's coming back full force to the point where I get like 5 hours sleep sometimes. And like only a couple of weeks ago, like I hit full burnout. I hit burnout to the point where I was like, I need to cancel all my training. I need to not do anything. I need to postpone all of my briefs and my postings, because I know this is unsustainable. And the only person who's causing that is me. And I just hope people know that if they do feel alone in their insecurities and their vulnerabilities, and they do feel alone with how anxious they feel over life, like, you're not alone, because we all go through those same human emotions. Like, every single person will have anxious days and will have down days and will have days that they don't feel so good. And we just have to ride those waves and speak openly about it. Like, I speak openly about the fact that I have therapy because I want people to understand that it's normal, it's normalized. And the same way that I look after my body with nutrition and food, the same way that I'm starting to look after my mind and prioritize my mental health, because in this day and age, and with the social pressures and the way that we're all expected to be successful and perform and have everything perfect and everything in line, like, it's excruciating sometimes. And we just have to really find our own voices and what truly makes us happy in all of that. And it's the small little things. It's the getting up in the morning, going on a little morning walk, and then coming back and having my matcha and making a nice breakfast and just sitting there with fresh flowers in the vase and a nice diffuser that I can smell. And I'm just like, that's bliss. I mean, the same way you just said on your weekends. What makes you content?
Just walking to Starbucks in the morning with my dog.
Yeah.
I love it. But you said it before. My business coach said, what do you do for you? So I told him all these times that I spend doing stuff for me that's just for me. But he goes, how present are you in those moments? I went, not very. He said, what are you thinking about on your dog walk? I said, I'm thinking about 12 different meetings that I've got for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
He said, that's the difference. He said, you need to be present. When you take that time for yourself, you need to be present in those moments. Otherwise, it's a wasted time. Literally, I go for a steam and sauna sometimes, and that's my happy place because I can't be on my phone. But the whole time I'm in there, I'm plotting.
Yeah.
I'm literally plotting, like, my next moves, my world domination, and it's just like...
What turns your mind off?
Paddle tennis.
Yeah.
Recently, I've started playing paddle tennis, and I love it. I'm addicted to it.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of in flow. So that's one thing that I found recently. But I'm so aware. Do you know what it is? I think we're both aware of what we need to do, but it's frightening how many people won't be aware of this. And I think it's so courageous what you're doing talking about this, because your content, especially more than anyone else, you do look like the perfect life. Like the way that because your content is so exquisite, the way it's delivered, and you're just so well spoken, and it looks perfect. But I think it's so important that you do show this side to you as well. And I think that's probably why you wanted to do the podcast as well, because you get an opportunity to show that side, because it's also, you do feel a bit like a fraud sometimes. If you're having a bad day and people expect, like, I can literally just be quiet and like basically drain the energy from a room. Not because I've done anything wrong. It's because when I walk in a room, I'm almost performing a lot of the time. It's like, I've got to be, like, even when you're walking in, playing my theme tune and everything else, that is part of me, but also it's a bit of a performance, right? Whereas if I just was a bit like this, you'd be like, you will. Are you okay, Scott?
Yeah.
That's the pressure I sometimes feel. So it's really important for me sometimes to share those down moments as well, because I want to be real, and I feel like you're doing the same.
Yeah. I think as well, we always will look at someone else and just think, oh, you've just got it all put together. You're perfect. Like, why can I not do what you do? Why can I not, like, XYZ, like that comparison mindset? But God, I've met a lot of people who I thought were perfect, and you very quickly come to realize that everyone's a little bit silly. Everyone's a little bit insecure. Everyone has their own issues, but that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with them. And I think the issue with social media and that cyberbullying and that online bullying is that people think then that those not being perfect is an issue, or there's something wrong when you get picked apart for being too nice. Like,
Mad.
it's like, how can I win in this? But we're very lucky in this world that they are so few, and the mass amount of people are kind and considerate and caring. I mean, realistically, we're all just trying to bloody survive. We're all just trying to live a good life, eat good food, feel good, have good relationships, and wake up and go to sleep feeling content. Like, we're all just battling
Yeah,
our
100%.
own river.
I just want to say a massive thank you to British Triathlon for sponsoring this podcast. And I also want to say a massive thank you to you, every single one of you who have signed up to take on the Sprint Triathlon with me in Sunderland in July. This is going to be a serious challenge, but it's going to be a good one. I've not swam in years. I've never been on a road bike. And I do a little bit of running, but trust me, I'm coming well out of my comfort zone. So if you are feeling a little bit nervous, it's completely normal. And I haven't even fully started training yet because I've had a little injury. So it's not too late to sign up. We've got plenty of time. So please don't miss out on this opportunity. Bring yourself out of your comfort zone and make the most of my discount code, Learning25, to get yourself signed up to the race. And the link is in the episode notes. But if you're watching this and you're listening, this is your sign. Try something new. Come out of your comfort zone and let's smash this race together. Yeah. And I think we're fortunate, both of us, where we have now got that awareness. But obviously, you face certain challenges in your life. You talked about relationships then. I know that there was a time when you was in a relationship where you kind of, what's the word?
Had it all.
Yeah, you felt like you had it all. Well, you did have it all in this relationship, but you also didn't really know who you were. Talk to me a little bit about that. What was the process?
So when I was at university, I got in a relationship with someone, and I was with them for about 5 years. And it was
5 years, it's a long time.
It's a long time, and he was like incredibly intelligent, super successful, like an amazing creative. And I remember finding that really, really inspiring, but I slotted into his life. So I adapted and molded myself to become the person that I thought I needed to be in that relationship. And in that relationship, I was very lucky that I was very comfortable. Like, we had house, dog. Like, I didn't really.
What kind of dog, just out of interest?
English bulldog.
Oh,
wow. He was lovely, yeah. And I remember as lockdown was I think lockdown was a very powerful time for a lot of people. And what it really showed me was that I was very unhappy with who I was, and I didn't feel like I'd achieved anything that I'd wanted to achieve for myself. I lived for my life and for the people in my life, but I didn't live for myself. And I walked out. I walked out with nothing. And it was a very hard, turbulent time, both on my partner emotionally and me emotionally. And I don't think there's ever an easy way to leave your life. But I literally pressed reset. And I was on my own. I was earning next to nothing a month. It's the first time I've ever had to ask my parents for money ever since I worked at ASOS, so from the age of 17, to afford rent. And I just worked. And I set up my tripod and I started filming food recipes on Instagram, and they used to get 3,000 views, if that. And I just knew, I just knew so much deep down inside that this was going to work and this is what I was meant to do. And I just believed in the process and I kept on going. And then opportunities started to fall through. And I started to get amazing brand offers and brand deals, and my views started to creep up and my following started to creep up. And I now look back for where I am now. I would not be the person that I am today if I wasn't brave enough to leave everything that I thought I wanted behind. I thought I wanted security, safety, not to worry. But the reality is all I wanted to do was find myself. And I found myself through the medium of food.
Yeah, it takes so much courage to break away from who you think you are to become the person who you want to be. But also, it's almost like we can draw a correlation between quitting something as well when it's not good for you. Sometimes there's a lot of negative connotations around quitting something, when in actual fact, quitting something or breaking away from something can often be the most courageous thing that you can do.
100%. Like, failure is not negative. We need failure to grow and to learn. I've learnt the biggest lessons in my life from the things that have gone wrong or haven't happened to me. And at the time, it feels devastating. At the time, you cry and you don't know what on earth you're going to do. But for each of those failures, it has knocked me onto the path.
That's where the growth comes.
It's where, 100%. And I know so much more about myself through the bad times in my life, as well as the good times. But it's those bad times that's been that mirror. And it's like, okay, what are you going to do? What's your choices here? Where are you going to go? And you brush yourself off. You keep on going. You believe in yourself and you believe in your dream. And it doesn't mean that it's going to happen overnight. And it may not happen anyway. But I always think if you know deep down inside, well and truly, that what you're doing is what you were made to do, then chase it. Chase it to the end of time.
I love that. I always say to people, if they want to kind of change their lifestyle, it takes one decision.
Yeah.
But not kind of meaning it, not kind of wanting it. It's like looking yourself in the mirror and saying, I'm going to do it this time. And I always have that moment when I held that pebble when I went to Abu Dhabi and swore down that I would do 12 months sober. And it's because I could feel my potential. It's like I could feel it in my heart and my stomach, as cheesy as it sounds. And literally that year, I completely changed my life. And I did it quite quickly because sometimes when you do have the courage to follow your passion or to pursue your potential, things move out your way. Do you know what I mean? You start attracting the right things into your life and it can kind of happen really quickly. And listen, I know you've worked really hard to take your following, for example, from where it was to where it is now, but you're on a bit of I've seen it over the last few weeks, like you're kind of snowballing now, like everything's gathering momentum for you. And it's because you're just in flow with what you're doing. But talk to me about your job now. For anyone who doesn't know who Emily, the nutritionist, or Emily English, like what does your day-to-day look like in terms of creating content and your food and everything else?
So I wake up I normally wake up at 6, but 6:30 since daylight savings because it's absolutely killing me. I wake up at 6. I'll always get out immediately. So get out for a nice walk, probably walk for an hour. Sainsbury's, I live like near a really big Sainsbury's, so that opens at 7, and I go and get all my food shop.
So wait a second, when you go for a walk, you're not got a dog or anything?
No dog.
You just go for a walk on your own?
On my own. And I write the recipes that I'm going to get the groceries from Sainsbury's.
Okay, and do you listen to a podcast or anything? You actually just like...
I like silence.
Oh,
yeah.
silence. I love that. That's mad.
But it's only because I think I constantly have like people talking to me and noise all the time that when I wake up in that morning... I try and keep my cortisol as low as possible. And sometimes I find when I listen to these self-help podcasts, they don't make me feel better always. I've actually stepped away from the self-help books and podcasts and things because I find that I can get, again, like overwhelmed with the amount of information that I'm trying to
If
absorb.
I read a self-help book before bed, I get anxiety.
Wired. Yes.
So
yeah.
I only read it in the morning.
Yeah.
I can't read it. I'm like, I go to bed going, oh my God. If I watch a documentary, it's inspired me. Sometimes I'm like, I feel like shit.
Yeah.
And I've got anxiety. So I feel you on that. Sorry.
100%. That's the thing. Like, keep it calm.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to swim and survive at the moment. But like, I'll walk along and say, for example, I did this like hot halloumi avocado toast the other day. And I was walking along and I was thinking, I want to do something with halloumi. And I was thinking, okay, I like halloumi. What does halloumi go really well with? Brunch, cool. Why don't I do my special avocado toast mix with like tomatoes, fresh herbs, whack on a bit of sourdough. Yeah, nice, sexy. How am I going to make this different? What did I use to, because I used to have a Deliveroo kitchen and I used to do halloumi with honey. So I thought, I'll do the honey halloumi. And I was thinking, oh no, what can I do differently? Hot honey I've seen on pizza recently. Let's put that on the halloumi and then stick it with an egg. So I will write this recipe in my head. I'll tap it out my notes. And then I'll go to Sainsbury's, pick up the ingredients, go home. I don't have a marble worktop. I have a fake marble mat that I roll out.
Why is that? Just for aesthetics?
Yeah, for aesthetics.
Oh
and
my God.
it lists out the food.
This is an exclusive, guys. She does not have a marble surface.
And then I'll film it. And then I'll edit it. And I'll probably film 2 to 3 recipes a day. All that I've just written out my mind that morning. And they'll go live over the next 3 days.
Wow. So you started doing that, obviously, for any content creators out there. You just started out pumping out content and everything else.
Chun.
When did you start to see it gather momentum? What kind of milestone in followers or anything else? Where did you start to see a bit of traction?
As soon as I hit 10K, it always started to creep up then.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw like a consistent evolution of engagement. But one thing that I always worked on was my content. So every single content I would watch back and I would look and say, that needs work, that needs tweaking, I need to adjust the lighting there. That's why I got the marble mat, because I have a grey kitchen worktop that sucks too much light in, so I don't get enough reflection.
Oh.
So I'm a little bit of a perfectionist in that, and then it's...
You won't be able to tell.
No. Really? And then go better lighting setup, better camera angles, and I just taught myself, and I just kept on doing it, and the evolution of my content from this time last year to now is hilarious. If you go back and you scroll through the difference between what I was doing to what I'm doing now. But I always say, like, if you're a content creator, grow, improve as you go. So it doesn't have to be perfect for you to start. I would be mortified if I put something out like I did a year ago, but I wouldn't have got to where I am now if I didn't put it out there.
I was just laughing because literally a year ago, no word of a lie, we were doing this podcast on Zooms. Yeah. Literally, and putting the content out, video content from Zooms, which is just frightening when you look back.
Yeah, and you have to challenge yourself enough. Like, it's don't get so comfortable to the point where you're unable to grow. Because I think sometimes there's a balance between softness and self-acceptance and working on you from like a self-care point of view. But if you really want it, you've got to push yourself and you've got to challenge yourself in those situations, and you've got to be able to look at something and be like, okay, cool, how can I make this a little step up? How can I make this the next level?
How do you push yourself without avoiding burnout? That's the question.
I make sure that I prioritize my self-care. So it will be little things like exercise, such a massive part of my life, my walking and getting out and about. I'll film and then I'll go and walk the riverfront. I'm lucky I live right in the Thames, so I have access to like a nice walk, or I'll sit there and I'll have a nice cup of tea and I'll just decompress. So it's taking those micro breaks to a point that you're not drilling yourself down into a hole. And if you feel really tired, take the time off. Like, when your body's starting to be like...
Yeah, it annoys me though, in this world that we live in, that hustle culture has become such a big thing. And I'm driven by that. Sometimes I go, I've literally worked. I've been up since 5 a.m. I've worked till 7 at night, and I've still not done everything I need to do. And there's this voice in my head going, if you want to be 1% of the world, Scott, you've got to hustle. I mean, Beyonce didn't sleep. 50 Cent did. All these, like, do you know what I mean? I'm hearing all this. Probably Eric Thomas, who I do love, and I listen to him at the right times. But I just took a step back and gone, it's bullshit. Yeah. Like, because I will burn out. So now it's about working smarter and taking that time. Don't get me wrong, I'm all about working hard and putting the hours in. Yeah. But if I feel like I'm at that kind of, that breaking point, I just have to take a step back and not feel guilty for it, which I'm learning to do.
I think it's about recognizing your boundaries, and a long work day for me will be very different to a long work day for you. And that's another issue with looking at these self-help books and these success books of someone who tells their story and how they pulled these all-nighters. You don't need to compare yourself as long as you're getting done what you need to, and you feel like you're pushing and challenging yourself to the way that you know you're going to evolve and grow. It's about finding your limits with everything. Like I'm not going to run a 5K at the same pace as you. It doesn't mean that 5K isn't beneficial to me. It doesn't mean that I'm not finishing the 5K. I'm still doing it, but I don't have to finish it at the same time as you in order to just get it done.
Yeah, because sometimes I take a step back from my day and go, have I been productive today? Have I been productive enough? And I can't kind of start listing all the things. And sometimes it's because I'm not spent enough time in a certain area, when in actual fact, some of those moments that I did deliver on are of much more value than me being a busy idiot and being a busy fool. Just like sometimes I can be that, just where I'm literally just looking busy for busy's sake. So I think it's about working smart and not working too hard.
100%. Like the last thing you want to do is burn yourself out. And it goes back to that whole point of, if you're not enjoying it and you're not enjoying the journey, then what are you doing? What's the point?
That's the point where I'm at, because there has been a lot of times where I've gone, why am I not enjoying everything I'm doing? Because actually, if I took a step back, like you said before, when you look at yourself, what do you say, like a bird's eye view?
Bird's eye view, yeah.
I go, and if I told myself, sometimes I drive past my old school, and I go, if little Scott could see big Scott now driving past, what would he think? Would he be happy? And if he said, right, he's got the social PR, he's got a wellness brand, Food for Thoughts, he's doing his, like, he's presenting and he's podcasting and everything else, he'd be buzzing. So it's about getting yourself to a place where you can enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it's not from a place of stress, which is difficult, but we're learning, right?
Always learning.
Learning as we go. So what's next for you then over the next few years? Obviously, you're creating all this content, you're inspiring people, and then you've got, is it plans that you do online? What's your main business?
So I actually am at capacity when it comes to clients now. So I can't get in exclusive.
What about, can we not do something special for my listeners? Like, so can we put a little offer on?
I'm sure we'll be able to collab on a special we'll nutritionist food for thoughts plan
we'll do
that they can download. But the next to me is I have a couple of amazing business partners, and I'm going to be launching a product in the gut health space. Ooh. So watch this area. It's coming soon. Hopefully we'll be ready by summer, which is very, very exciting. Super passionate about gut health. It's something that affects so much of our health and well-being. Like, the gut is linked to our brain, our immune system, our mood. A lot of people don't understand that our gut is directly linked to how we feel, our anxiety, depression, things like that. So working on your gut is incredibly important. And
I'm going to test myself here.
Yeah.
I did listen to someone's podcast on this. Is gut health something to do with like little microorganisms or something?
Yeah.
in your gut that I kind of need to be there at a certain level.
Yeah.
But if they go, I don't know, tell me please.
So
just trying to test myself.
Your gut is basically like its own little world that exists within you. And we have a whole host of bacteria which live inside our gut. We call this a microbiome. And what we eat is what they eat. And when they eat what we eat, they convert it to health-promoting compounds. So something called short-chain fatty acids, which are incredibly anti-inflammatory. They help support the gut lining and the gut cells to keep your gut nice and strong and balanced. And it also helps kind of digest and absorb extra nutrients from our food.
Wow.
But we just know that so much of our gut health is really at the root cause of a lot of our health issues. And we're just starting to connect so much back to the gut. And it doesn't mean that the gut is the magic bullet and is going to cure everything, but looking after our gut health is such an integral part of looking over our overall health, which is why I'm just really excited to be developing like a couple of incredible products for supporting gut health, feeding our good microbiome and keeping everything tip top.
Amazing.
Which is the kind of main thing. And then I'm working on my cookery book.
Ooh.
Which is incredibly exciting. So gotta
sign me up.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
I'll send you a signed copy.
Amazing. Do you know what? I get so gassed when you comment on, if I do a little recipe sometimes and you comment on it, like you give me approval.
It's like, and the nutritionist
I'm
approved.
like, I can't believe it. I'm like, gosh, you just like literally, we did something with Heck Food recently.
I saw the spaghetti.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, we smashed it. Well, it was a big moment for me anyway, put it that way. But honestly, today has been a massive eye-opener. First of all, thank you, because I feel like I'm not alone. And I feel like a lot of listeners will feel that way as well, because I think it's really important for people like ourselves who are in the public eye. Oh, that's what I wanted to ask you, actually. Obviously, I went into a reality show and done different shows with my brothers and everything else. And I became like a celebrity kind of overnight. But you must now be getting a lot of attention and stopped in the street and stuff like that, because you've built this profile. Everyone's talking about you everywhere I go. So what's it like now dealing with that?
I probably get like 200 DMs a day.
What?
Yeah, it's madness, to the point where I can't reply to them all now. And when I'm out and about, I will always meet someone now who knows me. So I'll always either have someone who will message me afterwards being like, oh, I just saw you here. And I have the best audience ever. Like, I adore them. Like, I love all of their feedback and those gorgeous little messages. I love it when mums send me pictures of like their kids of like my super greens pesto sauce all around their mouth, being like, he loved it. And I was like, this is so good, because food is so universal, and it's one of those things that can have such an amazingly positive impact on people's lives. And as a nutritionist, I say, oh, I'm a nutritionist. People automatically think, oh, deprivation, what don't you eat? Rather than look at all of this amazing, delicious food that's going to make you feel amazing, that you're going to love to eat with your friends, your family, your partner. And it's that whole ethos around my social media page and the content that I put out. It brings me so much joy. It just brings me so much happiness.
Because the problem is huge. And listen, I can identify that with, obviously, I stumbled into a business, Food for Thoughts, off the back of my mate teaching me. Dead simply, he saw me posting brown rice, broccoli and chicken, and he said, what are you eating that for?
Classic.
And I've been training in the gym all my life. And the fact that he came around to me and went, you can have chips if you want, you can have bread, you can have chocolate. Just have the right calories for you, the right portions for you. And it set me free. Yeah. To the point now where, because obviously I started off on a meal plan with a coach at Food for Thoughts, but it's become like second nature to me now, where I'm managing to pretty much eat what I want, and I feel free because of it. And I want everybody to feel that way. And that's exactly what you're talking about as well. It's almost like you know the size of the problem, and everybody deserves to feel free, right? Because once they do feel free, like you said, you want to go into those beautiful restaurants. You want to enjoy the cheese ball that you talked about.
And that's the thing. It's like, as soon as people realise that they can have it all, just with careful balance and moderation, just don't get wrapped up in the toxic nutrition and diet industry. Half the things out there are there to make you feel worried, confused and insecure, so they can sell you this next weight loss pill and this next weight loss gummy. The reality is it sustainable? Can you see yourself doing it for the next 5-10 years of your life? And if the answer is no, then it's not the right thing for you, and you're just wasting your time and your money.
No, I fully agree. So make sure you follow Emily, the nutritionist, Emily English, on Instagram for inspiration and to change your relationship to food as well. But honestly, I've loved this. It's been like therapy again. And I'm glad that we got to show a different side to a side that I didn't even know about. And we definitely are very similar in so many different ways. So a massive thank you. And it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Round of applause for Emily English, please. Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm just trying to take it in, because I didn't expect to see that side of Emily. She really did open up today. And from social media, it looks like she lives this perfect life. And there are elements to her that are literally really aspirational. But the fact that she opened up and said that she goes through her own struggles with anxiety and always chasing one goal, then on to the next, I could fully relate to that. And I think a lot of you will too. And it really puts things in perspective that just relieve that pressure on yourself and try and focus on who you are as a person, and don't try and live your life by everybody else's terms. So I hope you got a lot out of it. I can't thank every one of you enough for always supporting the podcast. Literally, the messages I get every single day, it makes me feel so happy, because I love doing this. So I want to say thank you. Please keep following and subscribing wherever you listen to your podcast, and make sure you check out YouTube as well, and please subscribe to that, because it makes all the difference. But yeah, I will be back next week with another phenomenal guest. and we will learn some more life lessons with Learning As I Go.